So we now only have a few more days left of this January transfer window. What I'd like to know from you guys is, are you happy with the business that your club has done so far, or do you think they need to get a couple more deals over the line until the deadline? After the deadline has passed, I will have a video coming out ranking all the Championship clubs and how I think they've done in January, but there's certainly a few that need to get a couple more deals done if they want to have a strong end to the season. Before we do get into anything though, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, their link will be in the top line of the description down below. As I'm sure all you guys are aware, we do have Championship action going on tonight. We've got a lot of fixtures going on, 8 games going on in the Championship, so if you are heading out to any of those games or you want to get live updates to your phone with all the other results coming in the Championship, then OneFootball can have you covered for that. As well as that, you can read up on some of the players that we are talking about in today's video in a little bit more detail and have a look at some of the latest transfer rumours going around from your club. Always a handy app to have on you to keep up to date with everything. Like I said, link in the description down below. But let's get into talking about some transfers. So first of all, as always, we'll go through some of the completed deals which have gone through in the last 7 days. Blackpool completed the signing of Preston goalkeeper Chris Maxwell after he was released from his contract. An interesting one. I don't think that many Preston fans thought that Maxwell had a future at North End, but interesting to see that he's ended up at Blackpool. Bobby Reed's move to Fulham has become a permanent in the past few days as well. We saw them do the same with Ivan Cavallero. It's clear to see that Fulham are planning for the future. They have quite a few loan players in their squad, but especially in the last couple of months, Bobby Reed has really started to prove his worth in that Fulham side. I've really liked him since his days at Bristol City, and I think he'll go and keep on improving that Fulham squad. Brighton also completed the signing of Huddersfield midfielder Aaron Moy, being on loan there at the first half of the season. They have now turned that one into a permanent. Shame we won't be seeing him in the Championship anytime soon because absolute baller. Sunderland completed the signing of QPR midfielders Josh Scowen. Scowen's an interesting one. When he first burst onto the scene with QPR, obviously had that fantastic season with Barnsley, then made the move over to QPR. I thought he was really good. He was part of that midfield trio of Luongo, Scowen and Freeman, and those three just worked fantastically well off each other, but a tough tackling midfielder who I think will go on and do really well at Sunderland. Millwall made the signing of Bartosz Bilkowski permanent. A lot of people, myself included, thought that Bilkowski was pretty much finished last season after his time at Ipswich. You know, was a terrific goalkeeper a couple of seasons ago, but in that relegation season he was having a bit of a disaster. He was dropped several times throughout the year, dropped a couple of clangers, but this season at Millwall has really been a rejuvenation for him and probably has been one of the most underrated goalkeepers in the league so far this season. Kept them in countless amounts of matches. I think that Millwall got a really good deal on their hands there. Leeds United completed the signing of Ian Poveda. That one went under the radar a little bit, but I'm really interested to see how he gets on at Leeds. The 19-year-old can either play out wide or as an attacking midfielder. He spent the last 4 years at Man City and has just signed a 4.5-year contract with Leeds. But probably the biggest signing that has gone through in the past few days has been Leeds United completing the signing of striker Jean-Kevin Augustin, and I think a lot of people are really excited to see how this one turns out. With the form of Patrick Bamford and Ketia being recalled, they were in desperate need of another forward option, and they have gone ahead and done that. You know, we've been talking about Leeds constantly throughout these videos in the links to the likes of Chadham's, Andre Gray, Dwight Gale and countless others, but they've gone ahead and completed this deal on loan till the end of the season. I believe that Leeds are playing a loan fee of around about £2 million, and then if they do get promoted, then they do have an obligation to buy the player at around about 17.7 million. But this is a really fascinating move. He came through the youth ranks of PSG, really burst onto the scene there, then made an £11 million move over to RB Leipzig. He spent 2 seasons there where he went on to score 20 goals for them. He then spent the first half of this season out on loan at Monaco and has now completed his move to Leeds. I think that the things that Leeds fans will warm to even more was that Manchester United reportedly wanted to come in with a late swoop for this deal, but the player turned that one down. I mean, if you've got Solskjaer on one side and Bielsa on the other, you're always going to go one way, let's be real. But I was watching a highlight reel of the guy the other day, and very skillful, fast and direct, and a few years ago was one of the most upcoming players in Europe. He can also play out wide, which may be a bit of a danger if Bielsa still wants to accommodate Bamford somewhere in there. I'd like to see Augustin leading the line for Leeds, but he can also play it wide, so he's quite diverse in that region. But I'll leave a poll for you guys to vote on how many goals do you think this guy's going to get, because I'm really interested to see how he settles into Championship life. But there were some of the completed deals which have gone through over the past 7 days in the Championship. If I missed any out, let me know about them in the comments down below. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop into some transfer rumours. So starting out the transfer rumours with the news of Callum Robinson. He looks like he will be on his way to West Brom for the remainder of the season if the latest reports are to be believed, with the two clubs supposedly agreeing a loan deal. Bilic has been looking to add more forward options to his squad after their recent dip in form, and I've seen a bit about Callum Robinson lately and what West Brom fans think of him, but for me, I think this is an excellent move. In Robinson's last season at North End in the Championship, he scored 12 goals in 24 starts for Preston that season, and if it wasn't for the hamstring injury he picked up, I would say they'd probably go on to bag 20 goals that season. He was absolutely unplayable. He's very agile and tricky on the ball, and I think that he's best used when he is out on the left wing, and making that move to Sheffield United, he obviously deserved that, but he's gone to a side who obviously don't really play with wingers with the system they play, so he's been used more as a striker, which doesn't really get the best out of him, and for that reason he's not had the most game time so far this season. He has scored once for Sheffield United, but a lot of his appearances have been coming off the bench lately. And I think a loan move could actually suit both parties. You know, if West Brom were to use him in the right way, I personally don't think he's a striker. He played there a few times for North End, but he was always most effective when out on that left wing, when he can cut inside, get defenders in 1v1 situations, which is absolutely brilliant at taking the ball past people. With the way that West Brom like to play as well, and with some of the other players that'll be around him, I think that'll be a fantastic move for West Brom. I really think they're getting a cracking player there. But Slaven Bilic is looking to add more than one attacker to his squad before the deadline, and Miroslav Orsic has been the other player who has been heavily linked with West Brom in the past few weeks. Another player who they're looking to get over the line before the deadline. This one though doesn't look to be as clear cut as the Callum Robinson deal, and it looks like it'll be a bit more of a tricky one to get done, and probably would run closer to deadline day if it was to materialise. And we saw Nahki Wells being recalled from his loan move at QPR back to Burnley as they look to get a bit of profit out of the player while he is still in contract. For QPR, really hit a bit of good form over the last few game weeks, scored 13 goals for them and grabbed 3 assists. Currently the two clubs that seem to be most interested from the Championship seem to be Nottingham Forest and Bristol City, and Mark Warburton has basically said that QPR won't be able to match any of the bids going in for Wells. I think that Burnley looking for around about £7 million for the player, which is quite steep. A player with that low centre of gravity who can beat the offside trap, and I mean, he missed a couple of assists for QPR along this season, but overall his finishing has been decent. However, one player who could be departing from Bristol City is Josh Brownhill. Lee Johnson has said he expects there to be quite a bit of interest in the midfielder in the final days of the transfer window, and it recently came out that he has a release clause of £7 million, which I don't think is a bad deal at all. A player of his age and the way that he's developed at Bristol City over the past couple of seasons, the club's interested. The strongest link seems to be with Burnley, who do have a bit of a shortage for central midfielders at the moment. Maybe there could be some sort of exchange with Nahki Wells going to Bristol City and Josh Brownhill going the other way, but I've also seen sides like Leicester and Sheffield United mentioned in passing as well. I think Bristol City would be really good to lose a player of his quality as well, someone who can be a leader out there on the pitch. He can play a number of roles in midfield. You know, he's happy being box to box, he can sit in and do well, and he's also scored his fair share of belters as well. I also think it's been confirmed that Preston do have a selling clause for Josh Brownhill, so that'll be an interesting one to see how much North End end up with if the player is to be sold. And another player who's been linked away from Bristol City has been Eliasson, probably one of their standout players so far this season with 3 goals and 10 assists. Brilliantly skilled winger. Celtic are the latest club to be in for the winger. After reading recent reports, it looks like Bristol City are fairly confident of keeping hold of Eliasson until at least the summer. To lose either one of Eliasson or Brownhill will be gutting for Bristol City in the playoff push for the rest of the season, but to lose both of them would be an absolutely devastating blow. Probably their 2 standout players so far this season for me. Wickham still seems to be a striker in quite high demand, with Sheffield Wednesday still being linked, but now Cardiff are the new club who appear to be in for the Crystal Palace striker. By the looks of things, Crystal Palace are willing to let him go out on loan. It's just a question of which club is willing to pay the majority of Wickham's wages. Scott Hogan, who's currently out on loan at Stoke, could be moving over to Birmingham for the rest of this season on loan from Aston Villa, which is always an interesting one, but things haven't quite worked out for him at Stoke so far. He's only made 3 starts for them and hasn't really been anywhere near the squad since November, so for that reason doesn't look to be in their plans going forward. Scott Hogan's an interesting striker. I think that Birmingham are lacking a bit of mobility going forward, and Hogan does fit the bill with that. You know, someone who can beat the final line, play with Duke up front and replicate that sort of Chelm's partnership from last season, but his career and stock really has fallen off. At Brentford, the guy was absolutely prolific. He then made his move over to Aston Villa, and then things just quickly unravelled for Hogan. He's had a couple of loan spells in the meantime at Sheffield United and Stoke, neither of which have really worked out. He's not played all too much football. So this move to Birmingham could now be on the cards. With Scott Hogan, it's that sort of 50-50 thing where if you get the Scott Hogan of a few years ago, you've got a cracking player on your hands there, but you really need to build the guy back up because at the moment, he seems to be a bit of a shell of his former self. And so with Scott Hogan potentially off the wage bill, Stoke are looking to bring in the striker for the remainder of this window. Currently, the 2 strongest links to Stoke appear to be Sam Cosgrove and Lawrence Shankland. They're each playing their football in Scotland at the moment, with Cosgrove currently scoring 21 goals for Aberdeen so far this season, and Shankland has 24 for Dundee. So Stoke fans, who would you like to see coming in? We've also seen Burnley being linked to QPR winger Asai Samuel. I'm sure that QPR fans just want Burnley to go away at the moment after recalling Nahki Wells, but Asai Samuel showed glimpses last season but has really burst onto the scene this season. Brilliant flair and agility on the ball, but he's really added end product to his game lately with 4 goals and 4 assists for QPR in the Championship. Championship. Definitely one of the most upcoming players at the moment, and I can see why there's interest there. Wigan are currently the lowest scoring side in the Championship, and they are looking to get a deal done for a striker before the end of the window. Jordan Rhodes being the player who they've most been linked to over the past few weeks. They are trying to get him on a loan deal for the rest of the season, with the current loan fee being talked about as around about £500,000. Rhodes is an interesting one because I think it's still a striker who can do fairly well at Championship level if you get the right service to him. Do Wigan have the right players to provide that service for Rhodes? I'm not so sure. Obviously things haven't quite worked out there with Kiefer Moore so far this season, so how Rhodes will do in a similar sort of setup, it's a tricky one with Wigan. Brentford could be going back in for Charlton striker Lyle Taylor. They were heavily linked with him during the summer, and with his contract expiring at the end of the season, it remains to be seen what Charlton plan to do with the player if a bid does come in. 7 goals in 14 appearances for Charlton so far this season. I think that Brentford have probably one of the best recruitment agencies and networks in the Championship. They're always getting people on bargain deals, and Lyle Taylor could be the next player to come in and do that. I think he would be a really good option for them. Leicester are interested in North End centre-back Ben Davies. Once again, more Premier League speculation around Ben Davies. I wish it would go away, but it is a testament to the player of how good he has been over the past few years at North End. But reportedly, they have got him as their backup option if they aren't able to complete the deal for Vestergaard. I don't think that anyone at North End could begrudge, you know, Ben Davies from moving on to the Premier League if the offer was to come in. But in terms of the fee, I think Preston have got to be asking for at least around 15. He's a serious player, and for the age he is a ball-playing English centre-back, left-footed, that comes at a premium. Nottingham Forest seem to be a club who are looking to get quite a bit of business done before the end of the window, and it's looking like they're closing in on the deal for striker Nuno da Costa coming over from the French league. He's currently playing his football for Strasbourg, and it looks like a £2 million deal could be on the cards for this one. Not played all too much football so far this season, only making 4 starts and then making 10 appearances on from the bench where he scored 1 league goal. He's an interesting one to look into. I can't, you know, claim to be the biggest watcher of French football, so I've looked into him a little bit. I watched a compilation of him and he looked like an absolute world beater, but then lining that up with the actual amount of goals he scored 8 goals last season and 5 the season before that. Although he's not always played as an out-and-out striker, he's also played out on the right-hand side. So I'm just quite intrigued to see how this one turns out, really. Forest fans, let me know down below what are your expectations from this one. And Forest are also still keen on a move for Luke Freeman for the rest of the season. Like I said, I think that Luke Freeman would fit in and fill a lot of holes for a lot of Championship clubs, and if Forest did get that one over the line, as well as the Costa deal, and you know, they signed Diakabi, who they hopefully will be able to get the best out of him with a bit more pace going forward, that could be a decent little window for Forest there. But they are looking to add a bit more creativity and goals from midfield, and I think that Luke Freeman adds exactly that. QPR and Charlton are both looking for a loan deal for Spurs striker Troy Parrott, the 17-year-old. QPR are of course looking for options to replace Nahki, whilst and Charlton already in need of a few more forward options. And Filip Benkovic is still being linked around the Championship. Derby County have been chasing this one for quite a while now, but possibly available on the loan deal, as he's not really played all too much football for Leicester so far. But the club said to be interested. Middlesbrough, Derby and Bristol City each looking to improve their defensive lineups come the end of January. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's episode of the Championship Transfer Rumour Roundup. If you've seen any other transfer rumours that we didn't mention in today's video, then get them in the comments down below. But apart from that, that will now wrap it up for today's video, guys. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Make sure you do subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.